I would like to welcome you to Highline Electric Association's annual update. What's in a number? 463,647 and counting. That is the number of man-hours Highline employees have worked since our last lost time accident. That's a little over 4 years, working in the industry ranked as the 10th most dangerous in the United States. Safety is our highest priority, and I would like to thank our employees for their commitment to safety and their dedication to Highline. We've added 2 new members to the leadership team at Highline over the past year, and 4 of the 6 members of the senior leadership team are new to our positions in the last 18 months. Alex Astley took over as the manager of engineering in July of last year, replacing Trent Lautensack, who became the general manager of YW Electric in Akron. Alex started with Highline as a system engineer in 2014. Jim Jackson joined our team as the Chief Financial Officer in August of 2019, filling the vacancy left when I was hired as the General Manager following Mark Farnsworth's retirement. Jim comes with a great deal of experience working with cooperatives in Oklahoma. At this time, I would like to have Jim present the financial report.
Hello, I'm Jim Jackson, the Chief Financial Officer at Highline Electric Association, and I enjoy working with everyone at the association and look forward to meeting you, the members, in the near future. I would like to start by talking about kilowatt-hour purchases and sales. We purchased 454,992,964 kilowatt-hours in 2019. The vast majority, 454,772,074 kilowatt-hours, was from our power supplier, Tri-State G&T, and the remaining 220,890 kilowatt-hours was from Highline's solar generation, which will be discussed a little later. The purchases were down about 65 million kilowatt-hours compared to 2018. Now, before I proceed, I would like to mention that both Highline Electric sales and purchases of electricity is highly dependent on weather, which compared to 2018 was much milder, and the spring for 2019 had more rainfall. We sold to you, our members, 423,152,088 kilowatt-hours, a decrease of, again, about 65 million from 2018. Irrigation accounted for the largest share of kilowatt-hours sold, with 43.8% of the kilowatt-hours. Large commercial followed with 36.4%, residential at 14.7%, and small commercial with 5.1% of the kilowatt-hours sold. Operating revenue for 2019 was $50,470,258, which is a decrease of $4.8 million compared to 2018. The decrease in revenue is due to a couple of matters. First, as I mentioned earlier, weather was a major factor of decreased sales, and second was a decrease in the oil and gas production. Take note of the red tips on 3 of these columns. The red amounts symbolize deferred revenue that was used in these years to help meet financial goals. Our major lender, the Rural Utility Service, allows us to defer revenue in years which we may have exceptionally strong margins and recognize those in subsequent years. In 2015 and 2018, we used $800,000 and $300,000 respectively of deferred revenue. In 2019, we recognized $1 million of the remaining $1.7 million in deferred revenue. Our current budget calls for $700,000, the balance of the deferred revenue account, to be recognized in 2020. This slide shows operating margins after adjustments for deferred revenue have been made. Our operating margins in 2018 were a negative $162,828 before the recognition of $300,000 of deferred revenue, and a positive $132,172 after the recognition. Our operating margins for 2019 were a negative $1,934,000 before the recognition of the $1 million of deferred revenue, and a negative $934,000 after the recognition. Even using the amount of deferred revenue and still having a negative operating margin, Highline was able to meet all mortgage requirements. The most stringent of these requirements is O tier, or operating times interest earned ratio. O-tier is a function of interest of long-term debt, operating margins, and cash received from Tri-State for capital credit retirements. Our mortgage requires that our O-tier, when averaged over 2 years, remain above a minimum level. Our operating margin in 2019, although negative, was enough to keep us in good standing with our lenders, with the help from our non-operating margins shown next. Highline's operating margins are generated from the sale of electricity to the members. There are other non-operating margins that Highline receives from cooperatives in which we are members. Tri-State represents Highline's largest investment in other cooperatives. Highline's total margins for 2019 were $549,248. This is comprised of the Highline generating operating margins of a negative $1,934,906, the deferred revenue recognition of $1.2 million that were generated by our memberships in Tri-State, Western United, CoBank, and CFC, and another $282,000 in interest and other miscellaneous non-operating income. In 2019, the board members approved a capital credit refund that included 100% of outstanding Highline capital credits from 2004, 41% of outstanding Highline capital credits from 2005, 100% of the outstanding Tri-State capital credits from 1996 and 1997, and 13% of the outstanding Tri-State capital credits from 1998, for a total general retirement of $2,857,534. This slide shows our capital credit allocations and refunds since 1948. We have accrued capital credits of nearly $108 million. We have refunded to estates $6.2 million over this time period, and again, our general refund in 2019 was $2,857,534. Refunds in prior years were $42.4 million, totaling $51.5 million returned to our members since 1948. Your member capital credit balance is $56.4 million, of which $13.9 million is comprised of equity in Highline, and $42.4 million represents equity in Tri-State and other cooperatives. We are currently on a 15-year retirement cycle for Highline capital credits, and as Tri-State retires capital credits to Highline, we return that money to our members through retiring Tri-State capital credits. Although dismal compared to other years, we still ended 2019 with a positive position in cash and investments of $276,868. Highline continues to maintain a strong balance sheet. We ended 2019 with an equity level of 50.4%. Equity measures the extent that you as members have financed plant in lieu of borrowed capital. Highline built 1.7 miles of new line in 2019. We have 5,170 miles of total line, 10,466 meters that average 2 meters per mile. The national average for cooperatives is 6 meters per mile of line. We are a rural system, a mature system, and a slow-growing system. These factors require rebuilding or replacing distribution plant as it reaches the end of its useful life. In a fast-growing system, much of the system plant is new. In a mature system like Highline, we budget for upgrades and rebuilds to maintain reliable service to you, the member. Highline's utility plant ended the year valued at $108 million, which is a $2.8 million increase over last year. In the last 6 years, we have spent $10.6 million to maintain or rebuild your system plant to meet your needs. The cost to maintain our plant and make sure electricity is available, basically the cost of operating Highline, was 17% of our total expenses in 2019. Depreciation and interest were another 10%, and our cost of wholesale power was 73% of our expenses in 2019. As you can see, what happens at the generation and transmission level with Tri-State has a very large impact on your energy bill. But what else you see is that we operate and keep electricity available to the members on a very slim portion of the bill that the members pay. I would like to say thank you, and I hope this shows your association is doing very well and financially stable.
I'd like to take just a minute to introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. I took over as Highline's General Manager on July 1st of last year, following Mark Farnsworth's retirement. I started in this new role just a few days before my 27th anniversary of working for Highline. Those 27 years were split between two roles, 12 and a half years as a system engineer, and the last 14 and a half years as the Chief Financial Officer. My wife Trudy and I have been married for 23 years. Trudy is a speech-language pathologist for the Northeast Colorado BOCES and works with kids throughout the region. We have 3 kids. Austin is a junior at CSU, Josie will be graduating from high school in a couple of months, and Lauren is finishing up her sophomore year. I'm going to spend the next few minutes taking a closer look at a few aspects of Highline's financials, updating you on what's new at Highline, as well as an update on Tri-State. I want to start off by taking a little deeper look at some of the information Jim just shared with you. These are Highline's operating margins for the last 6 years, but this doesn't tell the whole story. The Rural Utilities Service allows Highline to defer revenue that can be recognized at a later date to offset anticipated future hardships. The hardship we were anticipating back in 2013 was wholesale rate increases from Tri-State. At the time, Tri-State was anticipating cumulative rate increases of close to 14% over the 3-year period from 2016 through 2018. Highline had strong operating margins at the time and was able to defer $2 million in revenue between 2013 and 2015 with the hopes of smoothing the rate increases to our members. This chart shows a quick summary of margins before and after deferred revenue adjustments and the balance of deferred revenue. Thankfully, Tri-State's need for rate increases leveled off at 8%, and Highline has been able to utilize the deferred revenue to spread the effects of the wholesale rate increases to our members over time. Our 2020 budget calls for the use of the remaining $700,000 in deferred revenue to help us meet our lenders' covenants. Since we have operated with negative operating margins in 2018 and 2019, and are budgeting for negative operating margins in 2020, and since we anticipate depleting our deferred revenue in 2020, there will likely be upward rate pressure in 2021. We're estimating that the rate increase necessary will be in the 2 to 3.5% range. The good news is that Tri-State is projecting stable rates for the foreseeable future. You may have had a few questions come to mind when Jim reported on Highline's cash and investments as of the end of 2019. There are a few events in 2019 that depleted our cash reserves. The first of these events was the prepayment of $4.2 million of higher interest rate debt. The passage of the Farm Bill last year gave us an opportunity to prepay this debt without penalty. This prepayment, coupled with the completion of a new construction work plan and loan application with the Rural Utilities Service, will drive our blended interest rate even lower. We anticipate being able to advance loan funds on our new loan any day now and take advantage of current rates for 30-year loans that are 2% or lower. The completion of the Riverview Solar Project had an impact on cash as well. Highline paid for the $2.7 million construction of the project, which was completed in November out of general funds. These funds were reimbursed when we executed a lease agreement with CoBank in February. Highline will buy the project back from CoBank at the completion of the lease term in 12 years. The effective rate of the financing for the Riverview project is approximately 1.8%. Highline introduced our on-bill financing program in 2019. We applied for and received financing from USDA's Rural Energy Savings Program. The on-bill financing program will allow you to make energy efficiency improvements to your home or businesses. There's a 3% interest rate with a maximum 10-year loan repayment period. The repayment amount will show up on your electric bill each month. Please call the office in Holyoke for more information. Our AMI meters and towers are roughly 60% deployed as we move across our system. Plans are being developed to deploy a level 2 electric vehicle charger at our headquarters building in Holyoke. This will be installed with no direct cost to Highline. This installation will allow us to understand the usage patterns associated with electric vehicle chargers, which is necessary in designing rates for these installations. Once we have experience with this charger, we will investigate the installation of a second charger somewhere along the I-76 corridor. I would encourage you to take a few minutes to read Leo Breckel's report as Highline's representative on the Tri-State Generation and Transmission Association Board. Leo's report contains more detailed information, but I wanted to take a few minutes and highlight some of the activities that have taken place at Tri-State over the last year. In January, Tri-State announced the details of their responsible energy plan. The plan calls for the retirement of the Escalante coal plant in New Mexico by the end of this year, and the retirement of all 3 Craig units of the Craig coal plant and closure of the Colorado mine by 2030. These changes will result in a 90% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions from owned and operated generation in Colorado by the end of 2030, and a 70% reduction in emissions attributable to Colorado wholesale sales. These changes are being driven by 2 factors: the passage of HB 191261 by the Colorado legislature at the end of last year's legislative session, limiting economy-wide carbon dioxide emissions by 2030, and very difficult economic conditions faced by coal-fired generation due to extremely low energy prices produced by renewables and natural gas. Member unrest continues at Tri-State. In 2018, Kit Carson Electric in Taos, New Mexico, reached a settlement to buy out of the remainder of their Tri-State contract. Tri-State reached an agreement with Delta Montrose Electric in 2019, allowing them to exit as well. Following these actions, United Power and La Plata Electric filed a complaint with the Colorado Public Utilities Commission, requesting that the PUC determine that what they should pay to exit their contracts with Tri-State. This complaint is still pending at the PUC and has been delayed with the appointment of a new commissioner. The difficult political and regulatory environment that Tri-State operates in can be summed up with a brief comparison. I mentioned earlier that the Colorado legislature enacted HB 191261 last year with what can be argued are aggressive goals for the reduction of industry-wide carbon dioxide emissions. Compare that to the bill considered by the Wyoming legislature, which would have effectively banned the generation of electricity from any renewable resource, reverse renewable portfolio standard, if you will. This dichotomy is only complicated by operations in New Mexico and Nebraska as well. In an effort to introduce some regulatory stability, Tri-State has taken steps to become regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, thereby preempting regulation by individual states. As of the writing of this update, FERC has partially accepted Tri-State's filing. The situation at the Colorado PUC and FERC will continue to evolve over the coming months. This is our commitment to our members. It drives what we as an organization do every day. I would like to thank you for viewing this update on your cooperative. Please contact us at any time with questions. Thank you.